right, you're listening to the HawkeTalk. I'm here today with Isaac Boots. How are you?
Hey, good. How are you? Nice to see you.
Good. Yeah, good to see you. Thanks for coming on. So I got to imagine from the start, you're in the delivery room, the day you're born, you immediately started dancing and it was just dancing from there, right?
Well, I do always say that I feel like I came out dancing out of my mother's womb. So,
There you
which
go.
I'm sure was deeply uncomfortable for her.
I would say, were you a kicker? Does your mom talk about the times you were kicking in the womb?
A lot of turning. I did a lot of
Yeah.
turns.
All right, there
Yes.
you go.
Yeah.
So there was
Paddle
validity to it.
turns.
Yeah. So take it back. Where were you originally from?
I'm originally from Hawaii. So I'm
Oh,
from a
amazing.
very small town on Oahu. I grew up in a different world, a
Yeah.
completely different world than what I live now. And in
And so,
as
yeah.
as simple as it was, as not easy as it was in many ways, it was beautiful in its simplicity.
I get
You,
it. I grew up in a small town. There's something amazing about just that, like growing up in a small
absolutely,
town, like the
yeah.
cliche of it, frankly.
I don't know.
And so,
There's something
yeah,
very like wholesome about it that I
yeah,
look back on, and I'm like that I wouldn't change it for the world.
yeah,
My parents were very young, really
yeah.
young. My mom
Uh,
was 16, and my dad
oh
was
wow.
18. Um,
And
so
got it. And was this once you were born? Everything. What were your parents finishing high school? What was going on in their lives?
I was passed around the cafeteria.
Yeah.
Actually,
Did they actually bring you to school? They did. I don't know. I honestly haven't. I
it's
would
the
love to dig
truth.
into
I'm
it.
like, oh my god.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's
You
amazing.
know, they were kids. It was their
Yep.
first love, and of course, my grandparents were all horrified. I grew up in a very Catholic, very strict home. So stories I've heard that, of course, it was a tumultuous beginning,
Yeah.
but I was very close to my grandma, who's my mom's mom.
Okay. So
And
they, as much as they were quote horrified, they came around and were there to support.
well, I guess I was so cute that they just had to
That's how it goes.
like, who's this dancing elf?
Yeah. From day one, again, dancing.
He's gonna stick around. Yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah.
so, growing up, as you said, you were close to your grandma, but like, what did your parents end up doing professionally? Like, what was kind of that? What was your childhood sort of surrounded by?
It was a tough childhood. It was a kind of a Dickensian childhood. I grew up really poor. We grew up on
Uh-huh.
food stamps, and we lived in a tiny house with my mom, my grandma, my two aunts, my uncle, another cousin, and my mom and my dad separated when I was 3, and
Okay.
so. Though he lived in the same town, I sort of saw him really sporadically. It was sort of a contentious environment, you know,
Hmm.
um, young love and all that. And
Yep.
my mom was tough, very, very, very tough. And for many years, I sort of resented her for it. But looking back on it, I understand.
Yeah.
She was a kid, having a kid, no
Yeah.
money, but she
Yep.
worked her ass off. So she had three jobs at any time, and I would be very surprised if a child could be raised the way I was raised today.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, even curious, like,
I would be very surprised that the legal courts would allow that.
got
However, it gave me grit, it gave me
yeah.
work ethic, and no matter what issues I've had with my mother, I have to credit her with being responsible for my success in many ways because it created something inherent in me. You
There's a
know,
lot of talk these days about the idea of like people that know they know how to deal with hard things do really well. So it's having grit, but also having the confidence that you have dealt with hard things and then you can go through hard things and get out the other side. Goes
It
a long way.
prepared me it prepared me for moving to New York when I was 17, the morning after high school graduation. It prepared me for working in Hollywood,
Yeah.
which, is the toughest industry in my opinion.
Yeah. Agreed.
And just navigating all of that and navigating success,
Yeah.
and sort of putting emphasis and value in the right things.
And I'm wondering, is there also a part of you that like you can take risk and go for it because you feel like you've been at the worst point, like you were living off food stamps. So God forbid you end up back there. You already know what it's like. Like
That's
I can go
that's
take risk.
I love that you brought that up. Yeah, I do. There is a sense of fearlessness
Yeah.
with that. There
Yeah.
is a sense of, how could it get worse than things I've experienced. You know, my father killed himself on my 12th birthday. You know, I haven't spoken to my mom in 7 years because of other issues. So there's a lot, you know,
Yeah.
and but in that, it's given me that sort of freedom to
Mhm.
take risks
Yep.
and just jump in there and walk into any room. I can walk into any room and not be intimidated.
Yeah. Because
You
yeah,
know,
exactly. What's the worst that could
particularly
happen?
if your upbringing, if you didn't feel like, I guess one can go both ways, but I don't really think I ever felt safe at home.
Mhm.
So it was I would be afraid to come home many times, and so I'm like, well, I survived that, so like, you know,
Yeah.
it's like I got
When
this.
you, as you said, it can go both ways though, because some people born with like that insecurity, so to speak, continue that insecurity and just always are latching on to safety, or you get so
Well,
comfortable.
that's a lot of my family.
Yeah,
I was the one
and
that
that's
got out.
yeah,
You know what
that's
I
not
mean?
common, but
And
that
so
there are people that take it the other way and do what
yeah,
you did.
absolutely,
So
absolutely.
talk to me.
Which is also why, like, you know, I'm the oldest. I have I'm the oldest of four, and so I'm very close to one of my sisters and my baby brother, who's 18 years younger than
Uh-huh.
I am. So he kind of feels like my son. You know, my
Yeah.
dad was 18 when he had me, and my brother was born um, from another my mother's second husband,
Mhm.
when I was 18. So I do sort of feel a paternal feeling toward it. So I try to guide them and take care of them as much as I can.
My brother's 31 years younger than me. I have
Wow.
a yeah, have the same stretch. I'm 37. I've got a 13-year-old sister and a 6-year-old brother. Excuse me.
Oh my gosh. That's
Yeah.
amazing. That's so
It's fun.
cool.
As you said, it's
Yeah.
actually really cool. We all hang
Yeah.
out, get along, travel together, everything. It's really cool. So, as a kid, like you again, you had sort of this lack of safety at home. Like, what were you into? Like, where did you go for safety? Where did you
Madonna.
go? Madonna, really? Was it?
True. Yes,
And I know you
I
just went
was
to her
well, I
concert,
mean,
right? You just went to her show, right?
I just went last night actually here in New
Yeah,
York. It was
yeah. I saw
amazing.
you. So
It was
that's awesome.
amazing.
So
It
you've
was,
kept
you know,
that through.
she's iconic and she's been around forever and
Yeah,
you know, I was born in 80. I was a kid when she was
yeah,
hitting it. And I think growing up in an intensely Catholic family and going to Catholic school and
yeah,
you know, going to mass every day and being an altar, where she was speaking about issues that were relevant to me, particularly being gay in a world where that was not acceptable
yeah,
at all. You know,
and
my dad was a boxer, and my grandfather was a boxer. I'm the third Isaac. Like, it's a very machismo, old
yeah,
school upbringing. You know, and I'm like doing paddle turns to Cherish on the beach, and my dad's like, we're not doing this. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And I was actually just telling my best friend last night that growing up, my father used to force me to box. And I was like 2 feet tall, and I was very shy and just a little more gentle.
yeah,
And I despised it. I mean, I would like break down and cry, and like he'd be like, you know, punching me in the face and like forcing me to do it. And I
yeah,
despised it for it. But looking back, it was the best thing that ever happened because I was able to protect myself. You
yeah.
know, and when kids would bully me in high school, I mean, they tried once in freshman year, and my dad taught me a move because I was so short to defend myself and sort of like knock him out. And and I mean, you know, and so I was like, oh, that
Yeah,
was actually
no,
great.
I'm all for defending yourself. And so I'm curious
Exactly.
on
But
you're
I do think I say that because I do think it's an example of
yeah,
the importance of being uncomfortable, of the importance of doing things that you may despise but are actually great for you.
yeah,
And I actually look back on the little boy version of me, and I'm like, I'm so glad you went through that and you learned that.
yeah.
Yeah,
No, totally agree. And so as you said, you discovered Madonna. Like, how old were you with when that happened?
probably like four
Or
or five. And you know,
so were you
at
already?
if,
Did you already feel like I'm going to say the cliche, but like you were different? Like sort of like when did you start to realize you were gay? And
oh well, I knew
was
I
it
was
before you?
different. I knew that I was theatrical. I knew I was a
Okay.
creative person. I knew
Yeah.
that all the other all the from like three or even four. I remember like
Yeah.
all the boys just being having sort of the drive to do things that I just didn't. And
Yeah.
so I wanted to dance, and I wanted to like play with my mom's makeup. I didn't want to be a girl, but I liked
Yeah.
the idea of glamour and theater, and Madonna, particularly with her music and her look, and it seemed attainable to me.
Yeah.
You know, her image then was like, it was really for the working class kid, right? Because you could go to a thrift shop and dress like her, and she was rebellious and you know, saying things that you want to say as a kid.
And were you already like being drawn to, I mean, I guess all little kids that I see like to dance on some level, but were you like exceptionally into dance? You were saying like from the beginning, but 3, 4, 5, like you really like to dance? Like were you going to dance classes or anything like that?
Well, I couldn't afford dance
Not
class.
fair.
So I literally learned how to dance from Madonna, from watching her
Okay.
music videos over and over and over again. Like, you know, I'd learn how to hitch kick and learn combinations, and I would just obsess over it and like try to look like her as much as possible.
Yeah.
And it was a sense of escapism because my household was abusive. It was, you know,
Mhm.
and so it was sort of my way to escape and sort of envision. I remember being 7 years old and listening, like watching Desperately Seeking Susan. It was on TV, and seeing Madonna in New York smoking a cigarette with her black boots on and singing Into the Groove, and I was like, that's where I want to be. I didn't even know what New York was. And I was
Yeah.
like, that was my Oz. Like I was like, this is what I need to do. This is where I need to be. And so I got this obsession in my head. And once I got into high school, there was an after school free dance program that I just like dove into. And that's really when I started training, but it really wasn't formal training
Yeah.
ultimately. It wasn't like I was in a ballet or modern dance, you know, conservatory, but I knew that I had the passion, and I also knew that I wasn't really great at other things. And I also didn't love other things. So I
Yeah.
was like, this is what you're going to be doing. So let's go, you know, like
Yeah.
focus on it and get
Did
better.
you have that like in high school? You had that presence to be like, this is what I'm going to, this is my ticket, so to speak. Like I'm doing this. I'm fully committed.
Absolutely. If one
Nice.
thing I would say about myself my entire life, I've always been very clear on what
Yeah.
I want, on
Yeah.
what I don't want. And
Yeah.
literally saw, I mean, I didn't even know what manifesting was, but I was very much like, it wasn't even hoping for it. I've never sort of, I don't hope for things.
Yeah.
I'm clear about what I want, and I work to get it. And I may not get it the way I think I'm going to get it, but I'll get it.
Well, because nothing was ever handed to you. Like it sounds like you had to work for it.
Except a
There's
slap
nothing.
on the
Okay.
face
Yeah.
and
There
sometimes
you
the ass, which I liked later.
go. And so you get through high
Wait, but
school.
I have to go back because you did ask when did I know I was gay, and I started talking about Madonna's paddle
No,
song.
but I
But
get, yeah, and I get what you're saying. Obviously, none
I
of
was
us are.
probably 5. I was probably 5, but I didn't.
Yeah.
That's another touchy question too, because I didn't understand what sex was. It wasn't like I
Right.
wanted to.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. Is you're
5,
not.
but I had I knew I wanted to like be like I had a crush um
Yeah.
on certain boys or whatever. I didn't even
Yeah.
know what a crush meant, but I just knew that, you know, something was different. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
I got you, and it makes sense. I mean, it's
All the boys loved Emily Chang, this beautiful girl, Emily Chang.
yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
I like her
Oh.
brother.
There you go. And it makes sense. I mean, it makes sense that like when a straight person's going to start
She
having
didn't
like
even have a brother, but if she did, I would.
oh, there you go. Um, so moving forward, on you get through high school, you said the day you graduate, you're going to New York, right?
Morning after, 8 a.m. flight, Continental.
And,
And I
and did
bought a
you,
one-way ticket. I had nowhere to live.
yeah,
I know, I mean, this sounds campy, but I had like 35, $40.
yeah,
And I landed because then there was one flight. This is at 98.
yeah,
One flight from Honolulu to Newark.
uh-huh,
And I literally landed and called my friend Matthew Tinker,
uh-huh,
who was a year older than me, who I knew through dance in Hawaii, and said, look, I need a place to live. He was a sophomore at this time at NYU,
yeah,
living in the dorms. And he's like, yes, bitch, of course. And so like I lived illegally on his dormitory floor
awesome.
for almost
Did you live
for
in his dorm? Or did you live like? Did you actually find like an empty room?
in his dorm on his floor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the dormitories at least then were like the size of a shoebox.
Yeah. Same. Yeah. Yeah.
But we had so much fun, and New York was such a different town. You know,
Yeah.
it was just a different. I feel like in many ways it was a little more accessible then.
Yeah.
You could go to Jaffa Cafe and get a great meal for like $5 at
Yeah.
any time of the night, or um, you know, it wasn't $10,000 to take a subway.
Yeah.
It was just a different thing, and it was vibrant, and I was surrounded by creatives, but what I did was every single day I auditioned or I
Wow.
hounded a casting director, and I
And
was
what were you auditioning for?
anything on Broadway. I was anything
Okay.
for Broadway.
Yeah. And did you
And
have, I know you were doing dance. Were you doing acting in high school too, or was it just, were you focused on
acting, of
dance?
course, yeah. I mean, it was theater
Yeah.
and
You were.
dance.
Okay.
And I always felt that I mean, I feel that, Broadway is the top, and
Of course.
um, I sort of, I was like, I don't want to climb. I don't want to like I want to go to Broadway. So I
Yeah.
just want to go
As
straight
you
there.
said, you knew what you wanted, you went for it. You didn't like
Yeah, I
want to take
just
a
I'm like,
bunch of stuff.
let's go.
Yeah.
But I was not qualified in many ways. I
Right.
didn't have like conservatory training. I didn't have a headshot because that was
Mhm.
like $800,
Yeah.
to get the photos and then get the prints, and you have to like print
Yeah.
them then and blah. I didn't even have a resume, but I did have passion, and so I
Yeah.
would just and I didn't have an equity card. I didn't have a union card, which you
Yeah.
need for most of these auditions to even be considered to get into the room. But I would
Yeah.
sneak into rooms. I would steal cards. Um, I mean, literally, I would
Yeah.
show up to Tara Rubin or Bruno Telze's office and be like, hi, I'm Isaac Calpito, and I need to be on Broadway. So what shows do you think I could do soon, like now?
Yeah.
And they'd be like, excuse me. But I think after a while they sort of got a kick out of me because
I
I,
would
I
say they
was
had to appreciate the passion for it.
I was relentless. I just
Yeah.
didn't care because I knew that I don't know. I mean, I was definitely better than most of the guys that I saw in the audition room. So so I was like, I got this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. And
Uh,
so
But I
you
didn't have a
kept,
conventional look. I wasn't tall. I didn't
right.
have a conventional sort of theater look. At least then.
Yeah.
Now it's definitely evolved
Yeah.
in a different way now. But
Yep.
that was a drawback that I never saw as a drawback. But um, it it did make it more
Turn rolls
difficult.
harder.
Yeah.
And were you working during that time? How were you? You said you went with 35, $40. How were you paying for your
I
$5 meal?
I don't even know. To be perfectly honest, I don't know how we did it.
Yeah.
But Matthew gave me a lunch card, so I would steal. Thank
Oh,
you,
nice.
NYU. I would steal lunch from the cafeteria,
Have you had a chance
and
to like give back to NYU, do like a guest lecture or anything?
I mean, I should, and act.
Yeah, it's at least one. Yeah.
I'm very good friends with the Tishes, so
Yeah. Yep.
we've actually
I
talked
know.
about that and laughed about that. The sort of
Yeah.
irony of it all. But
Yeah.
I went to Steps Dance Studio, and I didn't have money for class, but I knew that I needed to hone my craft more. And of course, because I'm always thinking of the next step, I was like, you know what? These teachers at this studio, in particular, choreographers on Broadway that I want to work
Yeah.
for.
Yeah.
And so, okay, I'm going to take Patty Wilcox's class. I'm going to take Debbie Roach's class. I'm going to do this, ooh, but I can't afford it. So,
Yeah.
I scrubbed their floors and
There you go.
worked their cafe, and then I think it was 10 classes a week free. And because I was
Awesome.
working in the cafe, I could eat there. I don't know if I
Nice.
could eat there, but I did eat there. So
By the way, like, and again, this is what this podcast is about. Is like you really did what it took. Like it's like, and not to fluff you up, but it's like you stayed focused when most people would give up and just go get a job and pay the bills, and they end up in New York. Maybe they go home with their tail between their legs after a year or two. You were
not an
like, I'm
option.
going to make this happen.
Not an option for me. It's
Yeah.
just not.
Yeah.
And I'm not
Yeah.
begrudging that,
No,
but
totally.
for me, I know what will make me happy. I know what I want.
Yeah.
And and I know now that even if it all went tits up and I lost everything, I could get it back. I could get it back,
Yep.
and I'll get it back
Yep.
better just because I'm a pusher.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you get those classes, you're scrubbing the floors. How long did you do that before things started to feel like there was some momentum?
Probably like 7 months to a year, to be honest.
Okay.
And then in between that, I would get like little dance gigs. Like there was a
You would. Okay.
production company called Shazam, and I
Uh-huh.
would do like a bar mitzvah in Hicksville or
Yeah.
whatever, and I would get paid like $100. And I'd be like, work. Okay, so we're going to the
Okay.
limelight.
Yeah. When was the
We're going
first
to the
gig you got?
limelight on Sunday night.
You remember your first gig as a dancer? Like what you got first?
Oh my God. It was probably a gig. It was probably a gig. It's some random,
There's some memorable bar mitzvah out there that was the first
party.
time
But
you.
look, it was money, so like, and
Yeah.
it's,
No.
and
Of
it's,
course.
it's but I took it very seriously. I took everything
Yeah.
very seriously. And then about a year in, I booked a regional production of West Side Story,
Okay.
which is very interesting. It was a regional production of West Side Story in Bellport at Gateway Playhouse,
Hmm.
which is a beautiful theater out there. But the reason I did it is A, because I needed the money, but
Yeah.
B, because it's filled with Broadway dancers, actors, directors, and choreographers that are in between Broadway shows.
Yeah.
So if their show closed, or like that's usually what happens. So then I was in the mix and I was meeting people.
Yeah.
And West Side Story ended up being the last Broadway show I did 13 years later.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's an interesting full circle, And then
Yeah.
after that, I booked my first Broadway show, which was Mamma Mia, and that was a big part of my life because it was such a huge hit, as you remember. And I
Yeah.
went on tour with them, and I was on Broadway for 7 years. I did a European tour of Greece. I did Hair. I did West Side Story, and it was 12 years on Broadway, basically.
I would say you were 18 with West Side Story, right? And 19 with Mamma Mia then?
Yeah,
Wow. So it did kick in pretty quickly. You were young when it kicked in for you.
yeah, yeah.
That's awesome.
I lucked
And so that
out.
was,
I lucked out with Mamma Mia. I think. I mean, look, I'm not. I,
so yeah, how did that happen? Let's talk about like how did you end
I
up on Mamma
I
Mia?
I showed up to the open call. It was an open call, and there were
Yeah.
literally hundreds of boys. And I'm sorry to say, I'm very impatient, and I am. That is something
Yeah.
I've had to work on. But I am impatient, and
It can serve you in the right time.
I cut the line. I literally
Yeah.
went to the front. I went to the
Yeah.
front
Yeah.
and just
Yeah.
literally
Did
like
you give you a
asked
hard time or did you?
walked in.
Nice.
And I think I just lucked out with that, A, because I love pop music. I love Madonna. Madonna was heavily influenced by ABBA, I feel,
Yeah.
because, and I loved it. And I was like, it wasn't a conventional show.
Yeah.
So my look, I felt like, I'm like, cast me. Like, this is correct.
Yeah.
I had very curly hair. It was a lot longer. Like, I'm Hawaiian. It takes place on a beach.
Yeah.
I'm like, you bitches don't even know. This is my life. Okay. And
Listen, the confidence goes a long
and
way.
I killed that audition. I did.
Well, and
Yeah.
honestly, thank you for sharing the cutting the line thing because I've actually gotten flack in the past for giving advice that's not necessarily what people want to hear, but it's the truth and how sometimes it takes. I'm like sometimes you've got to cut the line. You've got to jump out there a little more and be uncomfortable and maybe make a few other people uncomfortable. Not that it's necessarily, let's not judge the good or bad, but if we're talking about how to get there, sometimes that is
I
what it
mean,
takes.
you should be polite at restaurants when you're ordering.
Yes,
And
I agree. Always
you
treat
should be
them well.
polite in your life and courteous. But when it
Yes.
comes to work, when it comes to getting what you want, one doesn't want to be treacherous because there are laws of the universe.
Yes.
But
Agreed.
sometimes you gotta cut a line.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'd use the word aggressive. Like you got to be
You
aggressive.
gotta go. Let's
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
And
Agreed.
and ultimately, I knew those other boys were a waste of time. So I'm like, let's just.
Confidence goes a long way too.
I'm tired.
Yeah.
I
And
gotta
so
do
did the next 13 years of your career that you talked about in terms of like all these other shows you're on, did that just like flow one into the other? Like once you did well with Mamma Mia, it was like kind of the door was open?
I'm very, very lucky. It's rare.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is rare. I mean,
No, that's the thing.
I was 12 years on Broadway with no break.
Yeah.
I did a hit show after hit show after hit show. And I was very strategic in when I wanted to do another show, being very sort of, okay, like I was cast in other shows that I won't mention that would have had prestige. But had I left to do it, so, I love games. I love card games. I'm really good
Yeah.
at gin rummy. I love backgammon. I love sort of like strategic games like that. And I do look at my life, at least the work side of it, like that. And
Yeah.
I got certain shows that I would have been prestigious, but then I was like, is this going to be a hit? Is this going to run for more and more
Yeah.
and more than a year? Or is it just,
Yeah.
and looking at the climate of everything, I was like, look, I mean, no shade to Mamma Mia. It afforded me a life, and it was a
Yeah.
big part of my life, but it's not it's not Chekhov. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so
Yeah.
why is this a hit? Oh, because it appeals to the masses. It appeals to the
Yeah.
tourists. And so
Yep.
like, do I want to leave for a really, prestigious job that is going to leave me in the poorhouse, or, just play my
Yeah.
cards right? And
Yep.
thankfully I was able to have the opportunity to play it right.
Well, and once you have the success, you can go back for the prestige too. I feel like that's always there.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Once
and
I'm a mega billionaire, then I can.
yeah, you're well on your way. And
Yes.
so the other thing you mentioned, which is like how hard Hollywood is like, yeah, usually from like why I find it hard and my observation of it is I don't care how successful you are, you're still trying out for your next role constantly. Like
Baby,
it's, and
famous
you
1 minute, you can be
exactly.
done the next second.
Yep.
And
Yep.
as soon as you start believing your press, that's when it starts to trickle down.
Yep.
And that was a really big lesson I learned early as well, is to not believe too much the good press about you, or
Yep.
when things are going great, because those
When you
same
rest on
people
your
will
laurels.
turn on you. They are
Yep.
sharpening their knives for every congratulations.
Yeah.
They are sharpening their knives because people
Yep.
love to see you topple down.
Yep. It is a huge part of the media. And so 2011, you finished your last show. Is that right? I have the timeline right?
Yeah. Oh, 12.
12. So 2012, what caused you to, after West Side Story, not move to the
Well,
next one?
West Side Story closed. We had an
Yeah.
amazing run. That was
Yeah.
amazing also because I got to work with Arthur Lawrence, who was 92 at the time. He wrote
Wow.
West Side Story in
Yeah.
1957. Legendary. I
Yeah.
mean, if you've ever read, if anyone who's listening, read Arthur Lawrence's original story by. It's one of his autobiographies. It's genius and it's amazing. He was my mentor and an amazing man. I felt I booked another show, which I will not name.
Mhm.
And I just felt that at that point I was 32, 31, 31. And I felt I can't do this after West Side Story, where I'm doing original Jerome Robbins choreography. And it's like I'm working with Stephen Sondheim, and it's just I was like 10 years prior, absolutely, but
Yeah.
I just knew that I think this is, if I'm going to look at the landscape of my life, I think ending my Broadway career and West Side Story is dope.
Yeah.
And I took a risk, I took a gamble, and
Yeah.
I literally said no to this very well-paying Broadway show that is still running today, actually.
Wow.
And I also felt like, I want to make more money. To
Yeah.
not to be crass, but I was like,
Yeah.
I've done this. This is amazing. I've learned a lot, but I need to make some real coinage.
Yeah.
And
No,
I
it makes
also
sense.
need to reinvent myself and shift. And literally 5 days after West Side Story closed, I got a call from the producer from someone who was producing a show that Brooke Shields was doing at the Box, which was new then. And she was doing one number at the Box. And
Mhm.
I guess the producer or someone saw me choreograph a number for a Broadway Cares event a few months prior. And now
Yeah.
this is another example of always hustling, right? And
Just
always,
always doing something.
and it
Yeah.
was no pay for the Broadway Cares thing, because it was for charity,
Yeah.
but I was like very serious about it. And that literally got me my first choreography gig with Brooke. We did one number, and I approached it like it was Madonna at the Oscars. It was really amazing, actually.
Yeah.
Not to be immodest, but it was fabulous. And because of that, she had a one-woman show coming up that she wanted to do at Feinstein's literally like the next month or 2 months after, and she hired me to choreograph that. And we opened like 2 or 3 months afterward, and I got my first review in the New York Times as a choreographer with a stellar review, and my
Wow.
career as a choreographer started. And from that,
So that's the
I got other gigs, and started working with Hugh Jackman, and more with Brooke, and then I worked with Ariana Grande for exclusively for 4 years. 4 years.
so you
Yeah.
joined her on her tour and helped choreograph or
I
shows, that
helped
kind of
I
thing?
helped I helped create the genesis of her pop life, and
Yep.
so I did all the music videos and performances and image consulting and creative direction and
Yep.
concepts, and it was amazing because that was a very special time, because I feel like I was able to experience. We were both able. We were both able to experience the first moment. The
Yep.
first moment of major fame, the first Grammy Award
Yep.
performance. The
That's
first
awesome.
American Music Award, the first flying to Tokyo on a press tour, the first,
Yep.
EMAs.
And
The
were you
first.
traveling around with her? Were you touring with her and going
Oh
everywhere with her?
yes, full out with,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
That's awesome.
Dancing with the Stars and Ellen, and so it was fun. So I
Yep.
was able to experience the top of the industry and meet
Yeah.
the people that I idolized. You
Did you get
know,
to meet Madonna?
I did. We actually, the first time I met Em was actually at her Oscar party. I went with Ari to Madonna's Oscar party. I think it was
Amazing.
2013 or 2014.
Yeah.
And she's every time, we've had many experiences together, and every time Madonna's so amazing to me and very sweet.
Awesome. That's great.
Yes. And
And so
at another Oscar party, I went with Faye Dunaway, who's another dear friend, who was actually my maid of honor at my wedding.
oh, wow.
For you youngins out there, look up Faye Dunaway. She's an icon. But Madonna was in a, like a leather, or like patent leather, panties and
Yeah.
classic, corset. Madonna, she may have had a whip. She
Yeah.
definitely had like a biker hat on. And she
Yeah.
jumped on me and hugged me and said, "Isaac, my workout bitch." And
Love
that was a moment. That was a moment for my 10-year-old self. Yes.
Yeah, that's
Mm.
amazing. And so you, in one of the motivations of this was to make more money. Were you making more money as a choreographer and doing that side of things than you were on Broadway?
Duh.
Just
Yes.
making sure. I don't know. Yeah, got to.
Yes.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and
And
so
and my experiences were just sort of amplified. You
yeah,
know, look. I mean, I always say I went to college on Broadway. And that's how it
yeah,
feels. I was in a
yeah,
10 block radius in Times Square for 12 years, and that's 8 shows a
yeah.
week. And then suddenly I was like living in LA, and we're traveling around the world, and it was amazing. It was amazing, and all through that, I was ultimately doing Torched every day,
Yeah.
because I created Torched when I was in
Yep.
West Side Story. For me,
And pretty clear. Obviously, I know, but Torched is your workout program, right?
Torched is my workout. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, which has a big
Awesome.
virtual presence,
Yeah.
particularly on Instagram, and I have a
Yeah.
subscription there, and it's afforded me a life to be able to travel around the world and do big events and collaborate with high fashion brands.
Yeah.
It still feels like it is. It's another extension of something I created when I was a dancer. So there's something very authentic about it, and the
And so what,
story.
like, talking about that, so you were saying like that was something you were doing the whole all along the way. What
Mm.
was this sort of workout program? I haven't done it. I want to. And if you just mentioned you're
You
coming to
haven't
LA,
done
so
it
I'll do it.
yet?
I haven't done it yet. I have to.
Come
This
on
is on my
now.
list. I know we got to make it
Come on
happen.
now.
But
Well, look, never too late. But
no, of course
it
not.
is
I'm in.
it's ultimately a vigorous flow of
Uh,
body resistance and targeted reps, and a mixture of everything that I learned as a dancer and a performer, to not
got
only
it.
stay lean, stay tight, but have the endurance and stamina to do a show. Right?
Yeah,
It was to be able to do this really intense show, and for people who
yeah,
aren't dancers, it prepares you to live a life with a body that is ready, a body that is vibrant, a body that is
yeah,
on fire,
yeah.
and
Okay.
you can do it anywhere. And
Yeah,
I think that was part of the reason it really blew up during the pandemic, because
yeah,
I mean, You don't need a gym. You need the space of your body and your body. Of course, we amplify it with, my weighted activewear and
Uh-huh.
bands and things. But ultimately, all you need is you. And even if it's 10 minutes a day, it shifts. It shifts for the better.
And when did you start developing that as something you would give to an audience, to other people, as opposed to something you were just doing yourself?
Well, when I was working with Ari, we were
Yeah,
doing it pretty much every day.
she was
Ultimately,
doing it with you too.
yeah. And
Okay.
so slowly but surely, people started. LA's Hollywood small, and word got out, and suddenly, people are firing their trainers and hiring me, and literally, kind of overnight, my days were like, once I came back to New York, my days were, heavy hitter after heavy,
Yeah,
8 a.m. Kelly Ripa, Faye Dunaway, whoever, like major Priyanka Chopra, and it was like back to back Gwyneth,
yeah,
and suddenly that was my life, literally, and it
yeah,
was like 10 clients a day, doing what I working with performers, working with mainly with actors and singers to prepare them for their projects or their live shows.
yeah,
And I do, I mean, I think when you come from that um, background, there's a language and there's an understanding
yeah.
of
And what
how
year?
you want
When did?
your body to not only look but
Yeah,
to move. And you
yeah,
move differently when you're a performer. You
yeah.
just do.
You have to. You have to carry stage presence.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, when did you move back to New York after Ari? Was that 2016? Just trying to get the timeline.
2015, I believe.
15.
Yeah,
And
and that's really when Torched, it was like, okay, here we go. This is like
yeah.
full out.
And so, how did
And
that progress? I mean, you're training people day and night and doing it yourself. How did you? Again, it sounds like you're always thinking about what's the next move here. How do I expand off this, et cetera? What was the next thought? How did you build off of, like? Obviously, you had built a cult following and some great clients, but what was the next thing that came from that?
the next thought was, okay, this is what I love doing. This is
Yeah.
really what I love.
And I love that
Ultimately.
you say that. This is what I love doing now, which I think people get stuck on the idea of committing something for their whole life. It is okay to change your passion throughout. I love that.
Absolutely.
This is what I love doing now.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. However, what I will say is it's all connected.
totally. Yeah,
Because but it actually is.
yeah,
Because when I started choreographing, it was because I didn't wanna dance on stage anymore. But I wouldn't have been able to choreograph had I not
exactly.
experienced being a dancer at the top level. So I'm
Yeah,
bringing all of that experience and that knowledge and that sweat
yeah,
into this. When I devoted my time to working out, that was something I would start rehearsal as a choreographer for all my dancers and whoever I was working with Torched,
got it.
because I knew that that would make the performance better.
Yeah,
It's one thread. And
yeah,
so I never got caught up in, okay, I'm a dancer, or ooh, I'm a choreographer, ooh,
yeah,
I'm even a little bit like, I'm a little cagey about, people always call me a celebrity trainer. I don't connect with that.
yeah,
Um, I think when you put a label on yourself,
yeah,
it's like sort of, there's so much more opportunity, and I love the idea of wellness. I love the idea of being in the arts in some way and being connected to it
yeah,
in some way, and always being curious, and now I've created our torched energy patches, really out of necessity, because I'm traveling so much, and I'm like, I don't want to rely on artificial stimulation. I'm always in different time zones. I can't be exhausted. I always have to be not only
yeah,
on not only working out all day and training my clients from Milan, London, Paris, New York, and LA and Toronto, but often, most of the time, I have to like be camera ready. I have interviews, I have TV, I have events I have to show up for. So it's like it's a
yeah.
constant thing. And so creating these patches um, gives you the long lasting energy that I need without the crash and burn. So it's
Yeah.
the idea of looking at all the possibilities and expanding upon them.
And so to fast forward, this obviously Torch took off during COVID, as you said. People were stuck at home. It's a great workout to do. And then you started to build it into other things too. You started to partner with different brands, correct? And like really turn it into
It
an
took off in a
enterprise.
different way. I feel that before
Okay.
the pandemic, I was Torch was really in a in a rarefied circle. You know,
Yeah. Right.
it was in Hollywood ultimately,
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
Hampton. And you know,
Yeah.
I've been working with Gwyneth and Goop, and you know, I'd be flown out for Art Basel or different fashion weeks or award season, the Oscars. But it
Yeah.
wasn't about showing it to people. It was like I was like sort of like a secret weapon, you know, like
Yeah.
you know. And when COVID hit, there was no strategy for this to be. Oh, this is an opportunity. This was really out of me wanting to
Yeah.
move my body, do what
Yeah.
I love, and connect with my followers. At that point, I probably had 100,000 followers, which is a lot of followers,
Yeah.
you know, and I think I got that through my associations with different stars that I've worked with,
Uh-huh.
I'm sure. And it just happened that because the world was shut down, I had a captive audience,
Yeah.
and word of mouth spread, and a lot of my clients were on, you know, everyone from Jessica Chastain to Naomi Watts to Kelly Ripa to la 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 la. And we were able to use that opportunity for something bigger than just becoming famous, something
Yeah.
bigger than just making uh, having gratification for yourself alone.
Yeah.
And we were able to raise over $1.5 million for No Kid
Wow.
Hungry, which at the time I felt was really pertinent
Yeah.
and essential. Um,
Yeah.
you know, I feel that children being hungry in the best country in the world is inexcusable. And I just don't understand it. And so, um, and I think growing up the way I did, I still feel a connection to that kid, you know?
Yeah. Of
So
course.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
You
so,
got you
so
had the ability to
from
get
that, it's grown and I've been able to collaborate with major brands from Dolce Gabbana to so many
yeah.
and expand it and grow it in an interesting, risky way. This
Yeah.
is a risk. I'm not going the
Totally.
conventional route. You know,
Yeah.
I've had offers to open up my own gyms and la 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 and la.
Yeah.
I won't go into why I'm not, but I just what I will say is I I've I'm very and I think everyone should be. I'm very trustful of my instinct,
Yeah.
my gut. And I can actually have a physical pull or a physical aversion to anything I have to decide on and any direction I need to go. And
Yeah.
this is the
You
way.
like it to be fluid. You like it to be fluid. Like you don't want to have to be like, this is what we're doing. You want to let it kind of flow and go the way it's supposed to. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying that.
Okay. Okay.
No, I'm not saying that. It's
Okay.
not fluid because there is clarity,
Got it.
but I generally don't go the conventional way.
Which, by the way, I think that's how you become successful. Like nobody wins for being the best second place. Like it's not the best copycat. Like you got to do it a unique way to really be successful.
Damn, it's true. It's true.
So, couple more questions for you. Number one, what's next?
Woo!
What's coming
Well,
down? You've got the clarity of vision. Let's hear it.
yeah, well, I'm really excited because I'm coming back to LA. Actually, I'm doing a big Torch residency at the Mayborn Beverly Hills,
Beautiful place.
January through February 18th,
Great.
and we're launching our second collection of my activewear, which is really fabulous and doing amazingly. It's Torch powered by Kilo Gear, which is weighted activewear. So we have everything from
Yeah.
leggings to tops to unitards to booty shards with doctor designed weights in specific places. So it keeps your joints safe.
Yeah.
But most fascinating is that you can wear them throughout the day, even if you're not working out.
Yep.
You're burning 40% more calories. So that
Yep.
is huge because look, not everybody has time to work out every day. You don't.
Yeah.
You have life. You have kids. You have work. You have things.
Yep.
And it's I found that on the days where I can't work out for myself, it's helped me just not only stay in shape, but just keep it tight, you know? And
Yep.
so we have a lot on the horizon for next year, which I'm really excited about in many different facets of what we're doing with Torched and expanding on our energy patches and our energy gummies and yeah, I'm excited about it.
Always moving. I love it. Well, last question for you. For someone, I mean, you came from, as you said, a harder upbringing. You took the risks. You grinded. You pushed yourself through and got here.
I
What would be your
bumped and
advice?
grinded. Yes.
You what?
Bumped and grinded. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. What would be your advice to someone else that's, trying to get to the same place, that's trying to achieve greatness, that's trying to get out there? What would be the one thing you either were told, wished you were told, just knew intuitively that really helped you get to success?
I stand by this statement, and I know it's the secret to my success and probably most people's success is, of course, you need a clear vision and you need the action, disciplinary action every day to get toward it. Most importantly, though, and particularly in this age of social media, is to have blinders on and don't look side to side. And this sounds so cliche, but your only competition really is you, ultimately,
Yep.
because I can't do what someone else does, and they certainly can't do what I. So if you will, people, your followers, your fans will gravitate toward you. Period.
Well,
If you waste
yep.
time doing this, you won't get it, or you'll get it, but it'll be transitory. You know,
Yep.
when Michael Phelps gets into the pool, he's not looking side to side.
Yep.
He's
Swimming his
going.
race. Yep. Love it. Well, Isaac, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for coming on HawkeTalk.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And hopefully, I know I will see you in LA. So,
100%.
okay.
I've got to come try the workout.
Exactly.